few days now. So the first session we looked at masks, and I went through a few ideas of masks and why you'd buy certain different masks. And then we did weights and weight belts, and hopefully wetsuits, sorry, and hopefully gave you a little insight into why freediving wetsuits are worn, different ones. I didn't go into specifics about which one you should buy. I kind of forgot that, so I'll quickly mention that if you start freediving, we suggest you get one of our we sell Elios suits. We only sell 3 types: standard, hydro repellent, and super smooth skin. The hydro repellent is just like about 80 quid more than a standard suit, and if they've got it in your colour, it's slightly warmer, but it's a bit of an anomaly. So effectively you've got a standard suit and the super smooth skin. Standard suits are about 220 before lockdown, made to measure suit, pounds that is, and the super smooths are, in fact they're a little bit more now, actually about 240, and the super smooths are just 380 or something like that. We suggest you get a standard one for your first suit, then move on to super smooth for your second one. A 5mm will do you in all temperatures, and 3mm if you're going to go away a lot in hot countries. Super simple. Okay, so moving forwards, I want to cover a few other bits of equipment that we haven't mentioned so far. Now, I did mention last week or the week before about snorkels and why we in no tanks tend not to use snorkels, and that's the basic premise is you have a snorkel so you can keep your face underwater and breathe at the same time. There's several problems with this. The first is that your head is underwater, so if you're in a group, it's very hard to communicate with that person, and you can shout and shout and shout, but they won't hear you. Their head's underwater. And as we're generally in a group enjoying a dive site, it's quite annoying if one person's not in the group, as it were. The second thing is your breathing tends to get lighter and smaller, which is fine if you're just looking at fish. But again, if you're in a freediving scenario where you want to do a dive, or more importantly, if you're doing a safety situation, you want your breathing to be controlled, 5 in and 10 out. So without a snorkel, and if you're watching somebody without a snorkel, you'll take a quick breath in and then blow bubbles as you watch the person. So you're automatically doing 5 in and 10 out without thinking about it, which means it sets you up ready to do a dive. If you have to do an emergency dive, bang, emergency safety dive, you're kind of ready. 3 candle blows and away you go. So with a snorkel, tends to stop you kind of breathing correctly for a breathe up. The third thing is that it increases the dead space in your airways nearly double. Okay, so if you take your head out of the water and you blow the candles, all the air that's in your mouth is getting cleared out, and there is a little bit of air that's in the bottom of the lungs that won't quite make it out of your airways, but most of the air from the mouth will make it out. As soon as you put a snorkel in, it extends the distance the air's got to go by quite a bit, including the mouth. Okay, so the air in your mouth can't exit, so it nearly doubles the amount of dead space. So if you've been breathing in nice and slowly and breathing out nice and slowly, you could be taking a minute for your last breath, and that means the first breath you take in after your breathe up, you've taken in all the air that you've just breathed out. Okay, all that carbon dioxide rich air that you've effectively been doing a breath hold on for a minute, you're going to breathe it straight back in to your lungs. Okay? So a snorkel creates that kind of dead space. You will find people using it in a competition, which is fine. You can do anything you want in competition, but it also helps you if you're laying flat, face down. You can use a snorkel to breathe. unfortunately, even just laying on the surface face down, that much of water creates quite a lot of pressure on the chest. So again, it's quite hard to take a full breath. Having said that, if you're upright, then you're doubling the amount of pressure that you've got on your lungs. So it's quite. You got to think about these things when you kind of go into a competition. The other thing, in a competition, you're not talking to people around you, you're not part of the group, and you should be thinking about your breath. So it's not going to go shallower and shallower, because that's the whole reason you're there. So that's why you tend to see people in competition with it. They put a little bit of foam on the end of their snorkel, so when they dive, they can take it out, throw it away. Safety divers will catch their snorkel. So that's why you'll see people wearing them like that. Okay, so that's a snorkel. You would also interestingly see most people wear a snorkel wrongly. You should tuck it in the back of your mask. So the best snorkel available is the Cressy Slalom. Beautiful. I've had hundreds of snorkels, and I've never told anybody to buy one until I got the Slalom. It's incredible, beautiful, comfortable fit, nice rubber, beautiful. But if you strap it to the mask at the side, okay, so there's a side, the snorkel will be going up this way, which means as you lean forwards, the snorkel will be in the water. You need it at the back of your head. So when you're laying face down, the snorkel is facing upwards. Okay, so throw the clips away. Clips you get with them, throw them away. You tuck it in the back of your straps. In fact, the Slalom and the high-end snorkels that you buy, the spearfishing snorkels, don't come with clips because they're useless. Because you don't want it facing this way, you want it facing backwards. Okay, the reason they have it here is because most people who go snorkeling are just on holiday, and they'll be looking up, they'll be looking down, they'll be waving to their friends. Okay, but if you're serious about using a snorkel, you're not going to be kind of looking up and drinking water. You'll take it out and talk. Okay? A quick safety note: if you are going to use a snorkel, you must take it out of your mouth before you leave the surface. Okay, or at very least, as you leave the surface, then take it out. It's super important for two reasons. The first is when you come back up, you've got a tube full of water trying to get into your mouth, which isn't a good situation to be in if you've maybe held your breath too long, or as you take it out. If you had it in for the whole dive and it's full of water and you come out and you take it out, the likelihood of water going straight into your mouth and making you cough is highly likely. So you want to take it out every time underwater. The other thing is, if you do black out, your jaw will lock up. The muscles will spasm and lock up, which means safety rescue is very, very hard because you've got a tube full of water stuck, literally lodged in your mouth. Okay, so quick safety note: if you are going to use a snorkel and you're diving down, as soon as you leave the surface, just pop it out. Okay. Other things that we use are buoys. Now, there's loads of beautiful buoys out there now, freedive buoys. I did do a hack to them to make them even stronger. You tend to find that they kind of bow underneath and bend, but if you put a strap on the inside, you can pull down evenly on the top. It makes them a lot more solid. There's a YouTube video on there, on my channel, if you want to look it up. If you've got a buoy, check it out. It makes a heck of a difference. But there's lots of really nice buoys out there, and they're literally two things. One, they are a place to show people where you are. So in Menorca, for instance, when we dive with Adam, hey Adam, and we're probably going in September. When I say probably, depending on, lockdown, you have to have a buoy when you are snorkeling or diving, to show the boats where you are so they don't come near you. So legally you have to have a buoy. So you could have a little buoy, and you'll see Spearos have a little buoy, which is fine, but if you have a big buoy, you can rest on it, you can put your sandwiches in it. You don't usually put your sandwiches, that's just a running joke. Put drinks in it, whatever, and maybe some chocolate bars, or if it depends how long you're out for. Okay, the other thing is that you can use it for, you can attach a rope underneath, which may be for if you're competition style diving, you can use a rope, Or if you're trying to dive on a wreck, it's nice to have a guide rope. You can tie it off to a feature if there's an appropriate place to tie it off. So you've got a line literally from the buoy leading you to the feature you want. Okay, so there's a couple of uses for dive buoys. You'll also when we're talking about diving on lines, you'll have a lanyard. Okay, so you might have a lanyard, okay, depending on what the situation is, and that's to attach you to the rope so you don't kind of wander off. Okay, also means in a competition scenario, the safety divers don't have to look everywhere around. They know you're going to be on the rope, so they can just look down the rope and you'll be attached to it a meter away either side, because you can go around with the lanyard. Okay. So that's what a lanyard's for. Or if there is a major incident and they need to get you back as soon as possible, they can pull the rope up, you're attached to it, and you'll come back up. So you'll tend to find with no tanks we won't use lanyards, because in something like Raisbury, for instance, all the ropes we use are attached to the features at the bottom, so we can't pull them up. So actually we're attaching you to the bottom of the lake if we use a lanyard, which doesn't make any sense. And you're not likely to drift off due to currents in Raisbury. Okay. If visibility is really good and you know where people are, drifting off's not quite an issue. Okay, so that's why we won't generally use lanyards. Okay. Another thing that we sometimes use, have been known to use, is a sled. So a sled is a way of taking you down with no effort, and then a way of bringing you back up with no effort. Now, most people build their sleds with a long pipe that goes around the rope, and a tank with a lift bag and certain kind of weights on it. It's all very good, works very well. In Nice, they have a really nice yachting brake on it, so you can stop and start the sled. It's beautiful. About 15 years ago, I designed a thing called a shed sled, and we've used that for the last 15 years. And instead of using a long pipe, okay, we just kink the tank over and let it fall as it naturally would do, and then clip it onto a rope. It means we can use it on a rope that's attached at the bottom to a feature. Also means we can take it off if we don't want to use it. Also means it packs down to the size of hand luggage. Okay, and if you don't know what I mean, then let's have a look at the sled in action. So there you go. So that was in Nemo 33. That was Mika driving Mabs in Nemo 33. Fantastic dive. And you can see how it works, and obviously it's on there. You can watch it back. So the interesting thing is that we don't use sled to go further than you can go normally. Okay, or rather in constant weight. That's not the idea of a sled. The idea of a sled is to get you to somewhere that you know you can go and know where you can get back from easily. So if, for instance, you're trying to get to, 30 meters, and or rather you're stuck at 30 meters, or your deepest dives, 30 meters. If you do a constant weight dive down to 30 meters, okay, you can do that maybe twice in a session, 3 times in a session if you're kind of fit. But it takes a lot out of you physically to swim down there. But equally well, if you're not used to the depth, then the compression and uncompression of the body really takes it out of you. Okay, so you will get knackered quite quickly, and you're going to dive again. You can only do it, say, 3 times in a session. With a sled, you can stick it to, say, 28 meters, so less than you can do. So you can relax. You're not worried about equalization because you've been to that depth before and past it. But you can stop, and you can stop at the bottom and hang around for a little bit of time, like Nabs did in that video. Not massive. It's not about doing a static at the bottom. It's about getting used to being at the bottom. So, for instance, if you swim down, you can maybe stay, let's say, 2 seconds. But if you go down on a sled, maybe you'll stay 10 seconds. That's 5 times as long. Okay. So when you're trying to adapt to depth, you can do 3 dives, 4 dives, let's say. Okay, that's 8 seconds you can spend at the bottom. You do 4 dives on the sled, okay, you've spent 40 seconds at the bottom. Plus, okay, you can do 4 or 5 dives. Maybe 5's a bit excessive to 30 meters, but there it gives you an idea of why you use the sled. Purely so that you've spent time at the bottom, and you can get used to that and think, okay, the next step is very, very reasonable step. Okay, you've done the depth, you're comfortable with it, so the next time you do a constant weight dive or a free immersion dive, you're comfortable with it. You're like, I'm fine with that, and you can come back from it. Okay, so that's how we use a sled. We also use it when we go exploring because it just gives you more bottom time. But we wouldn't go to somewhere we can't get back from, but we get a little bit extra time down there because we've not used any energy to go down, have a look around, and then come back. Okay, so that's our sled info. So next up, we want to talk about specific equipment. Okay, so as low tanks, as you probably know if you're a member of the club, or if you've just watched a couple of our videos, you'll know we dive in extreme locations. So we call it ELF, Extreme Location Freediving. And a few years ago we decided this is something we wanted to do. And so we tried to learn how to get to some places. And the most extreme locations that people get to are in caves. So we started learning caving. And so we teach now the caving skills that you need: abseiling, ascending up a single rope, so going down a single rope, up a single rope, and we can use these to get to places that you can't normally get to. Okay. Now, the whole point, again, like all our training, we train in extreme situations so that when we go diving, it's not as extreme. So we'll go to tough caves so that when we go to easy caves with lakes, we're walking in going, this is easy, I've done this before. The worst thing it would be if you turn up at a lake in a cave and you're already nervous about the caving section you've just done. You're never going to get a wetsuit and jump in the water and have a good dive. Okay, you want to be doing the caving going, that bit's easy. I just want to do the dive. And in fact, we have got a location that we use for this, brings together all our skills, as the ELF test. And, well, I won't describe it. I'll just let you see our ELF test. Okay, so that's what ELF is, extreme location freediving, and that particular test tests all the skills you need for accessing places that usually people don't get to freedive. And we've got quite a lot of locations that we do ELF explorations, and one of them is Cornwall. So if you want to come to FreeFest, there will be some extreme-ish locations, some easy locations, and if we get the opportunity, depending on the weather, we might go to some difficult abseiling places. One of my favourites is trying to get to the prison, which requires effectively climbing down a sheer rock face into a mine. It's possibly a quarry, and that comes out at the back of a sea cave, at which point you walk along the shore at low tide only into another cave that leads to a perfect cylinder going up to the sky, and you go in, and yeah, it's called the prison. The joy of it is, not only is it amazing, but all the minerals leach out of the rocks, and so the waterfall is like a rainbow, bright green, blue, red, yellow. Just amazing. And then the next day we go at high tide, and then we go by kayak, and we kayak into the prison, and we can, well, dive it. It's 4 meters deep, but that's just what we do at FreeFest down in Cornwall. So if you're interested, kind of sign up for it. The 17th, 18th of July should all be over by then. Who knows? We're not taking deposits, so it's risk free if you want to come along. Okay, so moving forwards, where else do we go that we can do these amazing things? Well, one of the places that we failed to go to this year because, well, not failed, it was cancelled due to the lockdown, was Iceland. So here's a little video we've got of what we did at Iceland and what we're planning on doing at Iceland next year. So you've got You just got everything. Okay, so check this out, and speak to you in a minute. Well, so there you go. That was Iceland. So yeah, what can I say about Iceland? It's incredible. The visibility is world renowned for being incredible. You can't tell whether you're above or below water, but just the locations that we dive are also pretty spectacular. So if you get a chance to come along and join us on one of those trips, you're welcome to. There's a special, there's a place held open for you, Oliver. Whenever you want to come to Iceland, you can come to Iceland with us, dude. So, the only other thing that a piece of equipment that we use on a regular basis that I haven't mentioned are torches. Now, I mention it now because if you are thinking of coming on any of our trips with us, be careful when you buy a torch. We use Anchor dive lights. They are really, really good value for money. They are not cheap, okay, but your life depends on them. So it's not worth buying a cheap torch. They are exceptional quality and exceptional value for money. If you want to kind of ask about which ones we get, you're welcome to. There are other makes out there that are as good, but say if you go into a cave, expect with a €20 torch you got off eBay, well, I wouldn't let you go in with one because they just kind of wink out on you. You know what you're going to do. Whereas tried and tested decent torches, so we use the 1K, which is about 150 quid, something like that. Your life depends on it. So get a good torch. You don't you don't need them for most cases, but when you need them, you need them. So any questions, put it on the messages. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow. So we're doing stretches tomorrow, hopefully. What is it? Or I might do stretches on Friday. So I'll do a little stretching video for you about how we can improve mobility, especially now we're in lockdown. You can be doing this for the next 3-4 weeks, and you'll notice a difference when you get back in the water. So see you tomorrow, 7:30.